If you've been enjoying our podcast as much as we have and hope that we continue past 50 episodes, here's your chance. Here's your chance to help make that happen. By becoming a Patreon subscriber, not only will you help the Little House on the Prairie 50th Anniversary podcast to live on, but you'll also get exclusive content just for you.
Here's what's in store for you. Join monthly Q&A sessions where you can ask us about anything. Whether it's about our work, personal interests, or advice on your own projects, we're here to connect and share.
Enjoy unique content created specifically for Patreon subscribers, including bonus segments from our shows.
You'll have a say in what we create, and you'll have a voice in future content.
Benefit from exclusive discounts on merchandise and entries into special giveaways. It's our way of saying thank you for your support.
Receive personalized shout-outs in videos, podcasts, or social media posts.
Because your support on Patreon allows us to dedicate more resources to creating the content that you love.
You could join the Little House 50th Anniversary podcast community on Patreon and become a Prairie patron for just $5 a month. We thank you so much for your continued support, and we cannot wait to share our ongoing journey with you on Patreon.
We are extremely grateful for the support of VisitSimiValley.com and the city of Simi Valley's belief in Little House on the Prairie and their support of the Little House 50th Anniversary podcast.
Discover the charm of Simi Valley, California, the home of the prairie. Visit Simi Valley, where adventure meets history and the spirit of the prairie comes alive. Explore the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library, step aboard Air Force One, enjoy stunning hikes and savor delicious local cuisine. Whether you're here for a weekend getaway or a family vacation, Simi Valley offers something for everyone and is only 30 minutes from Los Angeles. Plan your visit today and experience the best of Simi Valley. Go to visitsimivalley.com for more details. Your adventure awaits in Simi Valley.
Hello, 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 bonnet heads. Welcome. I'm Pamela Bob, your host, star and creator of Living on a Prairie, and I am here as always with our prairie bitch. That's right, the one and only Alison Arngrim. Whoop whoop. Nasty. Ms. Olson if you're nasty. And we're also here with our hashtag imaginary boyfriend. That's right, Dean Butler. How are
Hello.
you guys?
We are
Very
fab.
good. How are you?
I'm good.
It's rainy here in Southern California, which is
gloomy.
which is great on the one hand, but it is gloomy.
I have all the...
It's gloomy here in New York too. It's that combo snow, sleet, yucky.
Well, you can go out without a sweater
And
in our
dark and
rain. You can
gray.
go out in a t-shirt in the rain. You will not freeze, but
That's true. It's very comfortable.
Don't
yeah.
hate
it's
you
warm.
guys.
But I have all
so
the blinds open and lights on. It is dark. It is dark in this room with all of the blinds open. It's dark.
So is the rain must be a welcome thing.
Oh, totally.
I mean,
oh my God, yes.
not just because it's Southern California, but because of the fires and the aftermath and all that stuff.
Well, and the good news is it's not intense rain. It's a very sort of a light soaking rain, which is really the right kind of rain.
Oh,
to
because
get.
they'd be worried about mudslides.
Oh,
and that
Oh, they
stuff.
are.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Oh,
So I
geez.
think they are worried about that, and that is possible, but it's less likely when you're not having this torrential downpour. It's just a nice, gentle rain.
Enough water to get things so they can grow back
how's
on the
the-
hills, But,
And how's the air quality out there?
it's better.
I keep getting warnings all the time that the air quality is not good. It just doesn't seem like that, but the warnings keep coming out. So, we are in this valley, and bad air stays in there. And of course, we've had heavy fog. We had very heavy fog on the west side of town last night. So everything's very still.
And the rain we're hoping is helping. It smells better already. But yeah, you had, at one point,
That's what I was thinking about the air. At least
we had 7 fires going, and in the 2 large one where houses burned, that means all the chemicals out. Someone said, hey, the CVS burned. You know how many drugs just went up in that fire? I mean, it's just, they said the Kings and the chemicals and the stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Keep masking, guys. Just keep the masks on.
Big filter in the air conditioner. Big filter.
Dean. Yeah. Dean, you wanted to address something as obvious as on the tip of your nose.
As the nose on my
yes.
face? Yeah. So if you can look here, you can see I have this little spot here on my nose. So I, for many years, have been dealing with skin cancer. I've had melanoma, I've had squamous, I've had basal cell.
Jeez.
I've
What
had it
ages? What ages did it all start?
I think it started, I want to say the melanoma was the first one, the most serious one, and it came up behind my ear. I think I was 42, 43, something like that, which was relatively early for that, which told me that I was going to be in or told the doctors that I was going to be in for this for a long time.
Yeah.
This is a function of being out in the sun a lot as a kid. As the doctors have said, the damage you did or the damage that was done happened before you were 10 years old. So this is all just a manifestation of that earlier thing. So what this is not like an outbreak. This is a cream that's triggering a response. To see that a cream goes on every night, just a dab on the tip of my nose.
Wow.
And the doctor said, if there's anything around this, it will spread. Well, I'm fortunate that the spot basically is right there, which makes sense because here this nose is out there and the sun is beating down on it. So, but anyway, I've just had this here. I wanted to acknowledge it so that people wonder what's going on. That's what it is. And I just encourage people, if you are fair skinned and the sun is so much stronger than it used to be children about that. Wear sunscreen, particularly have your children, your children and grandchildren, wear sunscreen. If you think about that, much better for them in the long run. And if you do sense that you've got issues, you need to get to a dermatologist and if you catch it early, it can be very easily dealt with. And I guess it's now my third, fourth round of this. It's being dealt with relatively easily. So thank you for asking, and thanks for allowing me to share.
Yes, the more you know. Cancer.
Better safe than sorry.
Fun, good times.
Pale people here. We're all.
I know. It's the three of us.
I've got the thing off the floor.
I know. The three of us standing together reflect the sun. We're just.
They come and they freeze little things. My mother had. It's just when you're Scottish Irish descent and you go in the sun. It's kablooey.
Eastern European. There we go.
It is,
yeah, we're not built for the sun. The sun, we're like
not.
Vampires. I mean, it hurts. The sun hurts. Physically hurts. People who love the sun, who are sun people, who are built for it, don't understand the concept. Like when I say to them, it hurts being in the sun. It actually hurts. They can't imagine what that's like. And that seems really nice to live in a world where the sun doesn't hurt you.
We're vampires. We're all
anyway,
vampires.
get that sunscreen. All right. Well, here we go. Let's get to business. We are recapping another episode. Yeah. Season 2 recap. Well, okay. So this episode that we're doing today, another one from season 1. And this one brought a lot of people back to the relevance of Little House in the early days of the pandemic, or I would even just say the pandemic, but I guess especially the early days. This episode hit really, really hard. So should I say, let's just say, from the studios of UBN Go in Burbank, California, this is the Little House on the Prairie 50th Anniversary Podcast, Season 2 Recap. Yeah. Okay, so we're back again for a pretty classic episode from season 1. Dean, do you want to announce what episode we're recapping?
So today from season 1, episode 18, The Plague. which is a great segue from a skin cancer conversation, premiered on January 29th, 1975, written by Michael Landon from a story by Michael and William Keyes. The episode directed by Michael Landon. Alison, give us the synopsis of the episode.
It's super intense. With the sudden intensity of a prairie storm, Typhus is unleashed on an unsuspecting Walnut Grove, teaming Charles with Doc Baker and Reverend Alden, who work together to the point of exhaustion, tending to the community's sick and dying. But when new victims begin to pour in from the surrounding countryside, the desperate men know they must find the source of the plague if they expect to stop the deadly epidemic. This is a really scary episode. I'm just saying.
Yeah, it's a
especially during 2020 when we all watched it.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think this episode about community banding together to survive a difficult experience was obviously part of the reemergence of Little House. People have been watching Little House forever, but this episode was one of the big ones that drew people back to the series, and it told a story that people were living every day. So.
I mean, the direct parallels to COVID was absolutely astounding. So I think when people watched this episode, it was like crazy. Now, I'm the dummy, and I've said this before on this podcast. I'm the dummy that decided, let's watch Little House during the pandemic, which everyone was doing, and let's watch the first episode. Let's watch The Plague, because I thought, hey, it correlates with what's happening. So I played this. My son was in 4th grade at the time. He's a freshman in high school now. But he was in 4th grade at the time. And I played it for him. And I saw him slowly, as the hour was going on, the eyes sort of get bigger and him get a little more stoic. And then afterwards, he couldn't sleep that night. He was terrified. And dummy me, because obviously he didn't fully realize the ramifications of what COVID was. He knew that there was this thing happening, and he knew that he wasn't going to school, and he knew that it was contagious. But until he saw this episode, this was the episode that showed him what COVID actually could do. And it scared him to death. And after that, he would not watch another episode of Little House. Like, I ruined him for Little House.
You ruined Little House on the Prairie for him.
He refused to watch unless I promised it was a very funny episode. But I couldn't believe it. I was like, I can't believe I ruined Little House on the Prairie for my child. Like, this is a nightmare come true. It was horrible. Horrible.
You didn't immediately then put on quarantine when we all had anthrax, no?
Yeah, there you go.
I know. What was I? It's also crazy that we have that one in the Little House canon.
Yeah.
We have
and I think it did
crazy
strike a nerve, because during the pandemic, when people were stuck at home and they were like trying to find something to feel good, everyone was so frightened. And
I mean, the girls are homeschooling
and
at home. I mean, it's exactly what we were going through.
But that's why they watch, because as frightening as it is, it's like, but look, pause there. And the Reverend Alden and Doc Baker, and they know what to do. They're going to say, if we could get Doc Baker and Bob over to our house, we'll all be okay. And I think they did.
That's
I think they turned to that episode and said, maybe we'll be okay. We can band together like this.
Well, I think what I love about it is it showed what people of goodwill are willing to do to help those they care about. I mean, without, there are lots of, I know, Alison, you're going to talk about some of the medical inconsistencies of this perhaps later, but there's the unknown of something that's so deadly.
Right.
And you don't know what's getting you. I mean, Doc Baker has a sense of what it is from looking at a rash, or I guess, he examined... When he examined the little boy, he examined Paul.
The high fever, the super high fever.
Yeah. Interesting also that this is so common. This was a little bit like a Star Trek moment where the red shirted guys are going to die in the beginning.
Yes.
And it had a little bit of that quality to it, where this family that we've never seen before and will never see again.
As soon as I saw that poor family, I went, they're doomed. This whole family is doomed because they're the guest family. Oh.
Yeah.
They can't even come back
No,
from
exactly.
returning. I mean, they're done. Let's take it from the beginning. So in the beginning, we see the man in the barn with all the pounds and pounds of cornmeal that he is selling
Mr.
to
Peterson
the town.
at the Feed and Seed.
Mr. Peterson. Shiesty,
No,
Mr.
he's really
Peterson.
innocent in
'Cause
this.
guess
Really?
what?
Thing.
He ate it too.
Do you think he's innocent?
Yeah,
too.
I
He
do.
almost dies.
Yeah, he almost because he ate.
Well, why was he selling it for so
well,
cheap
it's
then?
who sold it to him for so cheap that you have to look.
Okay, I missed that.
Seething
Got
with
it,
rats.
got it, got it.
Seething.
He is passing on his good fortune with low price to consumers.
Right,
He's not
okay.
jacking up the price and profiting. He's selling it at less, which is what Mr. Hanson is. How is he doing this? This is not the price of this, and I can't sell my flour because this cornmeal is so cheap.
Also, who knew Mr. Hanson sold flour? That was news.
It's
to
a
me.
mill.
Well,
It's
in-
a
in-
mill.
Yeah, but isn't
Yes.
it wood? Isn't it lumber?
Yeah, well, it's lumber,
Where-
and in season 6 you have the wonderful, you have that wonderful moment which we talked about. We did back to school where there's the millstone and it break. The thing Jonathan Garvey loses
I guess
control.
yeah, the
and,
millstone.
So
Yeah.
it's very. I always say about Little House. Michael was not obsessed with
Details?
that kind of detail. What Michael was interested in is how people felt about what was happening. It was the emotional
story.
life, less important than how does this belting make this saw work? I mean,
gears?
and you hear the electric motor when it's running, which is, it's just like,
problem.
are you kidding? But it's like, we let that go. We just let that go in the service of the larger story, which in this case is about where's this cornmeal come from? Why is it so cheap? And what's cool is we learn everything we need to know. In the first scene, we see the rat.
The first 30 seconds.
We know
we
what the
see
problem
it.
is.
Ooh, I want to know who the rat handler was.
Right, were those
do you guys
trained?
Remember? Were you or Allison? Do you know?
Would that have been Brian?
It must be someone who handles
Oh, yeah.
any animals, including rats.
I don't know who
on
did
that
it,
set.
but
Ooh, those
if
were
you saw an
nasty rats,
animal,
too.
somebody had them trained, and somebody sat because you notice the rat goes up a bag at one point, stops and eats and then turns,
Yes.
and somebody's going it's a left, squeaky, and telling them
Yes.
what to do. Someone is directing the rat. There was actually a rat trainer doing that. I don't know who they were, but that's what we did.
No, I believe it. Yeah. Of course, of course. Okay, so we know that things are not going to go right.
Yeah.
Yes, things are not good. And then we're at the Ingalls home. They're having a lovely day. Well, first we see this lovely family.
Enjoy the
doomed
cornbread.
family that will never be back. Two loaves. Two loaves.
Right. They don't have
They
to worry
made
about it 'cause
extra.
it's so cheap. Right.
They made extra. Oh, you guys. Ooh, it's so gross. Okay, and then we go to the Ingalls house, and Laura has a toothache. Now, here's what I'm thinking about the toothache. She probably just has, in current day, right? It's probably just a little cavity. Probably would be real easy to take care of. But instead, what has to happen? The whole damn tooth has to go. And that cannot be fun.
But Doc Baker says it is a baby tooth. It's not, and it's not her adult tooth yet. It's so it would have come out on its own. But yeah, that's an interesting thing. Doc Baker was not known always.
He was a dentist too.
Exactly. But not always known for the best diagnosis. Although he's going to redeem himself in this episode.
Yeah.
He really will.
He was a little modern because he said, I could let it fall out, but I'm worried it might be infected, which many doctors would have
He's
just said. He
smart,
said,
that
so
Doc
we're going to
Baker.
get it out just yet. That actually was, massively forward thinking for the 1800s.
Yes.
But they just ripped it out. They just ripped
I
it
always
out.
think 1900 was when the X-ray was first invented, and there were major breakthroughs in medicine in 1900. And I often tend to think Doc Baker was actually a really a really good doctor, and he was really interested in science and medicine. And I imagine what he would have been like if he had just been there, 20, 25, 30 years later.
Antibiotics, 1909, 1910, antibiotics.
Right. I mean, imagine how drastic his life would have changed, as well as the population.
Well, I want to do
right.
a shout out for Kevin Hagen here too. I
He's
think,
so good.
I think Kevin's presence as Doc Baker, his whole look, the vibe, the voice, great bedside manner. I mean,
Yes.
Doc, he just was
Compassionate,
He was a
yes.
wonderful presence. As much as he oversaw a lot of death during the
lot.
series, but you knew he was doing his best. There was
Part
no
of the
quack
course.
here. He was really a compassionate, caring, good doctor, wonderful presence. Great part of the core of that Walnut Grove community, along with Dabbs Greer, who we're also going to talk about today.
And it was realistic in that sense, because there's only so much you could do in 1874. There was very little you could do. And
I mean,
it's terrifying.
Yeah.
So here's another thing I noted. Is this our very first Little House on the Prairie ice bath we're witnessing?
It is.
Oh, maybe. Yeah, maybe.
I think so.
Maybe.
Because it's only like which episode is it?
Episode 18. Season 1, episode 18.
In season 1.
Yeah, and
I
that
think
little
it's
boy
our
was
first
really
ice
packed.
bath.
Paul was packed, and everybody was packed.
So now that I know it was actually real ice, my whole world view has been changed by this, because I never in a million years would have imagined that was real ice that they were using. Yeah, that kid was, and he swaddled him up too in that ice.
He was
like
soaking in
that
it.
poor
He
kid.
was soaking. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
good old
I think
ice
you're right.
bath.
I think it probably was the first one. Although if we go back and do the I think it's got to be the first.
Yeah, we'll have to. I don't think there was any before this episode. I don't think there was any major medical
Crisis,
episodes.
Right. Yes.
Medical crisis episodes.
I mean, look, Laura had
All right,
had tonsils in another episode, which we're going to talk about. But yeah.
But no ice pack.
That must have been.
No ice pack. Right.
Anyone who's like, don't you wish we were back in the 1800s where things were simpler? No, because a simple tooth pull sounds like it would have been horrific. She had every right to not want the penny.
Yeah, right, exactly. I love that.
Like from the tooth
Can
fairy.
I just say the tooth fairy was not invented in 1874. She says, the tooth fairy needs, you can put them under your pillow and they'll bring you a penny. And I was like, a penny? Man, I was in the 60s. I'd get a quarter. Even a little kid, I got a quarter, and it went up to
and
like
I was thinking
50
Pa
cents
doesn't have
early.
a penny.
No, penny. That was like a lot. And I remember getting $1. It's like inflation then. Okay, tooth fairy. I'm like flipping through my notes. The tooth fairy was early 20th century. The tooth fairy was not. There was no tooth fairy in 1874. There were some ancient traditions about saving your teeth, but
You
no tooth
mean
fairy.
she wasn't born yet?
The tooth fairy,
Right,
the tooth
Alison?
fairy
For the-
was
for
not
the youth
born, or she
who
hadn't
are
gone into
listening?
business.
Yes.
She hadn't gone into
Right, she
business
hadn't
or
gone
reached
into
this
business.
country.
That's
There was no mention of the tooth fairy in 1874.
Yeah, she's like a Mrs. Olsen.
She came over from Europe, and she actually did. There was like some weird tradition in Europe, but it was not in America. It was not in America. Tooth fairy was not in America.
Oh, interesting. All right. Only no one would have known that unless you specifically looked it up, which is exactly what we're doing. Okay. So she has to get her tooth pulled, and then Doc Baker examines Paul. Right. His name is Paul, who's burning up with fever, and that's when we see the ice bath, the crazy ice bath.
Well, even before that happens, Paul's mother collapses, so we know, Sylvie collapses.
She's
Again, medical note. It's so fast. It's so fast. In real life, typhus can take up to 2 weeks to manifest symptoms. It takes a while to kick in after the flea bite. The flea has to bite you, and then you have to and then it can take up to 2 weeks. It maybe a couple of days if it's particularly terrible strain or you're very sickly and dangerous to old people, etc. But the idea they ate that cornbread and man, the next morning, bam, they were down. It's like
again, Michael not getting caught up in details.
Yeah. No. How would we know that? Yeah, we wouldn't know that. Here's the other question though: how long do you have it before you pass from it? And does anyone survive it? Is that a thing?
Even with no treatment back in the day, bad fatality rate, 10% to 60%. If you were not particularly hearty or you were an elderly person or a small child, you were more in the 60% or very dangerous, you could die. If you were particularly young and strapping and healthy and like they packed you in the ice bath and did what they could, then, down to that 10% fatality rate. With treatment, the new drugs, which weren't invented till like 1958, the drug they usually use now, there's zero.
Stop it. Really?
1958, doxycycline. Doxycycline is the drug of choice now, invented in 1958. Zero death if they pump you full of that. None of that. Somewhere between 10 and 60%, depending on your underlying health, how bad a case you got, and if Doc Baker's there, at least with an ice pack to break the fever.
I am so glad you're here to provide this information.
Me too.
I
This
just
is
had no, I had no
fascinating.
idea.
This is my thing.
That's awesome.
I'm a medical
That's great.
geek. I was on the AIDS hotline. I'm big on disease.
Of course. Yeah, no, but again, I love it that Michael is not going to become concerned about this. This is for the story. He's going to push this forward. Yeah. So Paul gets it. Sylvie gets it. Sylvie
immediately
dies.
Yeah.
Very quickly.
You would have a high death rate. You're isolated from people. All they have is the ice packs. There were various treatments at the time you could try. So they would have had a high death rate.
I would have thought. Yeah, I would have thought at that time it would have been virtually impossible to recover from that. But I guess people did. I will say that Sylvie, the mother, just dead in that bed, hit me real hard.
And Doc Baker didn't. There was nothing said. No, I mean, it was like this was so much more serious that this was just the beginning of what was going to be a tough road. I think that's what Michael was communicating there, because there's no pause for any kind of acknowledgement. Eric is left sitting there stone-faced.
Yep.
Looking at his deceased wife, and Doc Baker's going back to their son to try and save him. So it's, I thought that was interesting too.
And you could, depending who you were, you could just go if you got in a bad case of typhus. You no treatment, so you could. It was terrifying. Well, I mean, when they're by the time they get to the church, and then he says you need to get shovels.
Yes. Yes. Bring the shovels. Yes. Right. Bring shovels too, because we're going to need to bury people. Yeah. I mean, Michael in the writing is putting all the seeds out there in a very clean way that this is really bad. And this is the fight of our lives to survive this, because this could kill us all if we're not careful.
How many people are in Walnut Grove?
Well, no, isn't at one point he talks about we have 11 people in the church who are sick. I don't know if that was 11 people who had died already or 11 people who were there as patients. It's not a lot of people.
And Walnut Grove is a small community, and that was the thing when you were isolated back in the day. You got something like this, and it was tearing through the place. There's only so many people in your town. If it's a 0 to 60 and it goes closer to 60, your town's over. If 60% of the people die in Walnut Grove, there is no town. You pack up, you leave the building. You're done. You're done. Well, then, another medical moment. Typhus can be very bad because during Napoleon's retreat from Moscow in 1812, because of course I know this, it was more French soldiers died of typhus than were killed by the Russians in the War of 1812. That is how bad it can go.
Wow, and you can just imagine that fleas would have been everywhere in that situation. And
unsanitary conditions.
Yeah, right. Again, you mentioned it a moment ago about how people, Pamela, I think you said people often romanticize about how great it would be to live in that time. There's no way I would trade the time we live in for all the challenges we have. I wouldn't trade it for those kinds of hygiene issues alone. That just the lack of knowledge about what is going on with all of us was deadly. And then the conditions, the cold, the extreme heat, just all the things that were unknown that could get you. I wouldn't trade.
Well, as he said, the only treatment he had is to try to break the fever with the ice, and then they were running out of ice.
Yes, right. Yes, we go to the ice house and the supply of ice is dwindling. So it's bad. Yeah.
And I think Michael meant that. I think meant to show, hey guys, the 1800s, we've just done 17 episodes. We've shown how lovely and charming and romantic it is. And here's why it was bad and why people progressed and invented things, because it was so hard. Because we had no medicine, and then we had the ice, and then we didn't have the ice. And this is how horrible it can go if you're stuck in that time period. I think he meant to show that. It was a challenge.
We're going off on some tangents here.
So we got to
Pamela,
the church.
Bring us back into the track here of the conversation. Is it Carl and his wife that Michael goes out hunting and he sees the wagon walking along with the unconscious driver, Carl? Is that where we are now?
Yes. So, but before that happens, Doc Baker comes into the church.
Tells everybody.
Let me just say one thing. A couple of years ago, a fan reached out and said, because we were talking about the sexy men on Little House on the Prairie, and apparently there was a cohort of fans who think that Doc Baker is the sexiest man, Hot Doc, as we call him, Hot Doc.
True,
which was
he was
surprise
way hot.
to me.
Okay, he taught dance. He was an Arthur Murray dance instructor when he was young, and the black suit. And I saw him in person.
Was not the one I was thinking.
Doc Baker, Kevin Hagen was very sexy in person. He was. He had that kind of personality. Yes.
People came out of the woodwork like, yes, Doc Baker, Hot Doc. And I had no idea. Just like I didn't know Garvey was like a big hot person. I didn't know. These are things that I don't know. So anyway, but I will say, Doc Baker walks into that church with his shirt button open a little, looking all haggard and worn. And there definitely is a little Hot Doc action going on with him here. And another moment at the end, which we'll talk about
His hair's
later.
tousled.
But anyway,
hair was
he comes
tousled.
into the church. Yes, and he's worn and he's feeling all the feels. And he comes into the church and he tells everybody he thinks it's typhus. And the reactions, also he says that Mrs. What's-Her-Face died. And the reactions of that were pretty insane and accurate. I would imagine if I was in a church having a lovely service about love, and let's keep the love going on during the week, and then your doctor bursts in and says, hey, your friend is dead out of nowhere, and also there might be a plague happening in this town. Horrifying, absolutely horrifying. Terrible. And which is, again, the parallels with COVID are just insane. That we lived this.
I was in a bar restaurant where the band went on break, and they said, ladies and gentlemen, the governor and the mayor of Ness, all bars are closed. However, we serve food, so we're still open. The band played a few more songs, took a break, and now all restaurants are closed. Good night. Please leave. Have a safe drive home. And that is the suddenness with which things happened. You were in the middle of something, and they said, we're closing. There's a plague.
And people dying, and people dying, and people that are, and it's just spreading, and you don't know the source. And that's what also the parallel in this episode was, just Doc Baker saying, like, if we could just find the source.
Multiple runbacks of that question. Where's the source? Because all these people come from all around. How are they sharing this with each other? And we keep seeing the bags of Well, it's all out in the open. I mean, the audience, it's written completely open for the audience. The audience knows everything. We're watching the town figuring it out.
Isn't that a Hitchcock principle where we see the bomb under the table and the two people talking at the table, the characters don't see the bomb, and the audience sees the bomb and goes, no, get up from the table.
It's much more scary, obviously. They know the jeopardy that's there. So, it's very good storytelling.
I think we should go on a break, and then when we come back, we'll finish the recap of this episode. Stay tuned, everyone. We'll be right back.
When you visit Simi Valley, California, you're stepping into the pages of history. Go from the pioneers to the presidents. Explore beautiful wildflowers, hike through iconic Hollywood locations, and end your day aboard the actual Air Force One at the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library and Museum. Throughout the summer, take the Little House 50th Anniversary Tour at Big Sky Movie Ranch. Less than 15 minutes from Los Angeles and 30 minutes from Universal Studios, Simi Valley has small-town charm with big-time history. Go to visitsimivalley.com for more information. We are so grateful to visitsimiValley.com for their commitment to presenting the Little House 50th Anniversary podcast.
And we're back, and just so you know, we're all talking about Hot Doc behind the scenes. Okay.
The stakes are rising here. I mean, so Doc Baker's Reverend Alden's been called back into town, and he, as the brave and as the principled community figure, steps in and risks, at least as Doc Baker puts it to him, you've been exposed now, you can't leave. Now, in fact, Alison, you'd say he probably hasn't been exposed.
But he thought he was.
Right. So then there's a part in the episode where Laura asks Pa, like, how do you get it? And he says, you get it from fleas and rats. But Alison, hit us with some facts.
You need to be bit by the flea carrying this bacteria, this disease on the rat. Or in the case, there's like 3 different types of typhus. One is lice, et cetera, et cetera. But this is a particularly bad one, is the fleas. But it is not transmissible human to human. It's just not. So you could fill that church with people who are sick, and as long as you check their clothes for fleas, which absolutely could have been a thing, and you clean the church, nobody's going to go in, nobody's catching anything in there. But yeah, you just die, but you're not going to catch it. I mean, none of those people, they're all standing back like it's airborne.
You could get it if you baked.
Well, I'm thinking there were
fleas
if
the
or
bread
flea
was
poop
in
the cornbread.
cornmeal.
In the cornbread, right.
And I love when Reverend Alden goes in, because he is a man of God. He's like, you can't go; it's not safe. And he's like, were you crazy? I'm the Reverend. Yeah, that's what I do. Sickness, death, and people needing me. I'm going straight into that building.
Right.
Yeah, you really see the goodness of these people.
Yes, and I think that's the messaging that's so powerful about community that Michael offers in the writing of this. And the episode is very cinematically shot too. It
really is. And also the wind. Can we talk about
the
wind?
I was looking at
I know.
So when was this film? Dean, do you know when? So it aired in January, but we had kind of a bit of time between the time we shot and things aired.
December.
And I was trying to figure out when it was the windiest in Simi, and I'm thinking December was when it was like.
Wait, so that was real?
Well, that was real wind, because there were scenes they didn't really want wind, like when they were trying to get that laundry off the line. I think they would have liked a little less wind than that. They're like falling over, the clothes are going over. It was insanely windy. Because remember the guys going, "It's a beautiful day to take my son fishing, to go for a walk." No, it's not. There's gale force winds. You can barely stand up. What are you talking
interesting
about?
that scene with the laundry came right after the burn this place to the ground, where if you light that up, we just saw in Southern California the power of wind and spreading fire. I looked at that and thought, was that shot green screen? Did he
shoot it somewhere else?
I had a feeling it was a little green screened. This was the first time I actually noticed, and I went,
I thought that too as I watched it.
I think it might
be because
the
something
light wasn't
which I
changing
never
on
noticed
their faces with the fire.
And maybe it's because we're watching it on more, HD television screens now, so that we can see details. I never noticed.
So they burned something somewhere else. And
you could see,
because you could light a fire like that and see me.
You could with the fire department around. You can see the other buildings in the background. You can see Olson's in the background.
They would have gone up like that in that wind and that big of fire. Oh my God! Everything would have been. There would have been a forest fire.
Everything would have been gone. And immediately off the fire, you cut to this like tornado, hurricane, as the girls are getting the laundry off the line. It's like, yeah.
So I honestly thought that it was intentional, that the weather was windy and stormy to correlate with the drama of what was going on. So I really, I was watching and going like, oh, they had fan machines.
We certainly
had.
No,
all to create. No, but I mean, I thought it was purposefully done to create this sort of atmosphere of what was going on, and to know that it was just windy.
And people had to loop. They had to loop all their dialogue because the wind was blowing and it was a nightmare. But I think what happened is when they went like, is it too windy? Michael went, no, it's perfect. It's great. It's great because the drama and the thing. He went, genius. Perfect. It's windy.
Because the hair.
Wind was the word.
His hair. He hated.
It's always about the hair.
Shooting in the wind.
But I think he figured it
was a
would
very
work.
effective tool. I thought the wind was a wonderful character in the piece to create this sense
It
of
was.
stress and danger. And
That's why I
yeah,
thought
I
it was
did too.
intentional. I thought, what a brilliant
'Cause they
choice
fooled
in the
you.
script
They
to
fooled
create
you.
this windy atmosphere.
So
Wow,
he leaves in
okay.
the wind, but when he's out hunting, there's not a breath of wind. So I'm thinking you're right. It was the wind, Alison. It was the wind blowing, because if it had been wind at the house, it would have been wind on the hunt. There was no wind on the hunt that immediately followed as he left.
To get there
from
just
the,
early in the morning before it kicked in, that is,
yeah, well, yeah, possible. Okay, yes, you could make
'cause
that
it
case,
did
but
come and
cut
go.
to cut is that, and Michael again didn't worry about that stuff. He just said, this is the situation. We're going to
windy,
shoot this." The only thing he couldn't do at Simi was to shoot in the rain, because you wouldn't have gotten out of there if you.
horrible.
How many times did that
A
happen?
lot.
I
I'm sure it
imagine
happened
not
a
a
lot.
lot.
Oh yeah,
Really?
Back in the
in the
day, it used to
springtime.
rain all the
Sure.
time.
But actually, but we didn't shoot in the springtime.
Right,
It would have been
before-
it would
November,
have been the fall. It
November,
would have
November
been-
and February were
Yeah.
our traditional monsoon, rainy months in California.
months.
We get the big rain, and it would rain in
big
November,
rain,
and we'd all go back to Paramount, and they'd have the board with all the episodes and the scenes. Going, well, we can't shoot that. Oh, we could shoot this today. What can we shoot today? Oh, we're missing
Kent
this.
McCrae,
Yeah.
was masterful at jumping the schedule around.
And they change it all around, and then they go, wait, but so and so's not. And sometimes they had to call an actor and go, I know you weren't supposed to work till Thursday, but we just like dumped the whole day. You want to come in?
One year I was in New York doing the Thanks Macy's parade, and I was supposed to go see my family in
November.
Virginia and and I got a call after the parade from Kent McCrae, say, "We need you to work tomorrow. Get on a plane tonight and come home."
November.
We did. Yeah, it was
Yep.
November.
What months did you guys film?
It was May through, I want to say May through February, something like that.
Yeah,
May
right
through
around.
end
I
of
know we
February.
did January because I always had my birthday on the sets, but like end of January, beginning of February, we stopped.
Because there was always a show that was ready to go for May sweeps, so that would have, that was the, that would have been the big thing that would have ended the season. Basically, was a May sweeps show. But yeah, it was May to February. I don't think we went into March.
Nope.
It would have been
Pilot
January,
season.
February, and then
Pilot
starting
season.
again. Yes, exactly, and then
Remember-
starting again, in May.
Pilot season, yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
remember it.
All right.
Okay, when
so
Paul finds the man
Paul,
who's
while he's
already
hunting-
dead.
Oh
Yes.
God, that's just that
Yes.
was he did that. I love the way he did that. He searches the house. It's
So
very
cinematic.
quiet. This wonderful cinematic shot looking up the hill. He sees it's the dead tree, the father and son of
Yes, it's
yeah,
the tree.
and Michael, the slow walk up the hill, the watching. Michael just allowed these moments to happen. He didn't minimal dialogue there, but he gave you all the atmosphere of this moment, and I just think this reveals over and over again his strength as a director. He was not afraid to let moments play.
And they were so gorgeous. This episode is really cinematic.
The
It's
heartbreaking
beautiful.
scene when he
All right,
tells
so
them, I didn't know his name. And he just
Yeah,
says,
right.
I had nothing to put on
Right.
the cross.
When he's talking,
That's it.
when
That's
Mom
it.
and Pa are talking
It's
about
just a couple lines. He's not crying, but he just says, I didn't know his name. I had nothing to put on the cross. And you see Caroline's face and his face, and it's just devastation. And again, the parallels to 2020, how many people were buried out on the island out there? When they had to do the Potter's Field.
Yeah, and there were those porta morgues that were on the streets in New York City that because they had to stack the bodies. There wasn't room in the hospital. It was just horrific.
I love the scene where
Awful.
Charles goes by and Mr. Edwards invites him in for the corn, and he says, "No, I can't come in, and you can't go into town. Don't come into. I need you as my best friend to be there if something happens to me to take care of my family." Which is a wonderful foreshadowing that things are not going to go well for Mr. Edwards either. I think again, just for the wonderful foreshadowing that Michael did to sort of lead us through this, and then the scene. I love the scene you're mentioning. The scene with Charles and Caroline. This sort of the longing of two people in love, and they're reflecting back on when they first met, and again, just that scene could have been something so factual, but Michael makes it emotional. Again, it's always about what people feel. This is what Michael really was so on top of, is what do people feel in these moments? And he made that happen in that scene.
And Mr. Olson coming through
Anything
saying you can
you
have
need.
anything in the store. Which again just felt so like, oh yes. It just felt so good when the people are just doing the right thing. And
Interesting that he did, because if he were going to include Mrs. Olson in that scene, she would have had to have objected.
Yeah.
You know, he didn't open the door to that. This is about generosity. We're not even good. And he don't want to tamper with Catherine's character by having her be negative, which would have had people hate her
really bad.
This would have been a Liam O'Neill moment from Harvest to Friend. That might have been an unrecoverable moment for her. He didn't let that moment happen.
That's why she wasn't even in the scene.
And these scenes were just little snippets, yet the intensity of emotion in every single one.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So let's fast forward. Now the church is a makeshift hospital. Lots of people in there. And we get a surprise cameo from
Leslie Landon.
Leslie Landon.
Oh, there's such a great story behind that.
And she was amazing. It's her first performance, her first episode on the show. Great. And I remember going, wait, this is her first time. I went, is she like good? Was she good in this? I don't remember. And then I went, oh my God, she's amazing. Yeah. She's amazing.
Great.
Yeah, she's really good.
She told me a wonderful story about this scene. She said they had to shoot it. Michael had to shoot his coverage again because the first time he was looking at his daughter and got so emotional that it was inappropriate for the scene. This was not his child.
Right.
So he had to dial it back and control him to be more circumspect about this moment, despite the fact that he was looking at his daughter, who he absolutely adored, and stepping into the reality of that moment. And I think, I don't know, I don't remember what she said, who spoke up about that, but it was determined after the first take that we have to do this again. Michael, you have to collect yourself, and you've got to, and he's directing. I don't know who would have been, who was his first, if it was Miles or if it was Maury, it wouldn't have been Maury
Teddy, his buddy, the senator.
Teddy Boylander might have said something to him.
Was he
Teddy was the cinematographer,
but they were tight. So
okay,
yeah. And then of course Miles Middow, who was the other lead first assistant director, I think there probably would have been a collective conversation about that and recognizing I need to dial this back a little bit, because that could have been a really, I'm sure the waterworks would have been flowing on that one big time, and it wasn't the right vibe.
When she looks at him and says, "Am I going to die?"
Wild choice.
Am I going to die? Right.
I know.
Yeah, no,
forget
she was great
it.
in the scene. She was
Forget
wonderful in the scene. Yeah.
Ugh. Also, what a choice. Who's going to play the dying child? I know. Great opportunity for my daughter.
Yeah, and she was really nervous going to the set that day, and you're going to be great, and she was wonderful.
Yeah, she was. She
nailed
was
it.
Also, Mr. Edwards, she nailed it. Also, Mr. Edwards has fallen sick. But this conversation with Charles is how he figures out that it was in fact the cornmeal that is.
That's right.
The
because
source.
the flour and the cornmeal conversation happens, and then he puts together that he's seen all these things at the other house and the bag at the other house.
Like 8 people in a row go, "We just made cornbread. Did you want some cornbread? I just finished my corn dog." They were going, corn.
Corn.
Like
keep talking about once cornbread comes,
they keep saying corn, and
I know.
And finally, when Mr. Edwards goes, the stuff that was half price from that guy, and penny drops finally.
The penny drops. Okay, so then Hot Doc and Pa, Hot Doc and Chesty Charles go to
Chesty Charles. Chesty Charles. Wow,
that's a good one.
Go to They go to Peterson's
They go
barn.
to his feed and
They
seed.
open
he's
the
there,
barn.
He's running the feed and
Oh,
seed.
it's the feed
They
and
go
seed.
upstairs to the feed and seed, and he's unconscious.
And he's unconscious, and it is infested.
that shot.
Well, no, upstairs, they
disgusting-
find the keys. They open the door finally. It's like they're shaking the lock. They have to
Oh my
get it
God.
open. And they're
That
the
shot
rats.
with the-
And
yes.
yeah. And,
The rats
and
are
then
so
Doc
disgusting.
Baker has his
Okay.
best line in the episode.
Best line. This is when he redeems the hot doc status in my book, where I was like, I never saw it before, but here it is, and this is the moment. The moment is. Wait, I even wrote it down. The line is. Get Peterson to the church,
This
then
place to the
burn
ground.
this place to
Yeah.
the ground. And I was like, oh my God, that's hot. That is hot. This is the way he did it. The standing in stillness, like the groundedness of it. It was so great. Okay, hot dog people, I'm with you. I'm on board for this
And when
episode. at
they
least.
kick in the door to go get people, initially they're going to kill him because they're going, this guy sold everybody the bad stuff. Where is he? And they're banging the door. And then they come in and he's
he got
been
screwed
eating the
too.
corn too. He didn't know.
Yeah.
He ate it. He's also
I
deathly
know.
ill. Oh,
And the way the character was cast, you just knew that the character had no idea that he was selling bad cornmeal. He just didn't know. This was a completely innocent thing. on
and it
his
was
part.
a lesson was if it's too good to be true,
It probably
it's too good a
is.
deal. And how many people were horribly sick or died because they could not resist a bargain?
I think we need to track down Liam O'Neill, who probably sold Mr. Peterson the cornmeal.
It was
That's who did it.
Hell,
It was
him
Liam
source.
O'Neill that sold him the cornmeal from his other place in some other town.
All right, so we'll wrap up the episode, but Edwards gets better. Charles brings
The
Edwards
church
back
is sterilized
home
with
with them.
sulfur,
Happy
which
reunion.
is sort of that. Yeah.
Oh, with sulfur, it's gonna smell like fart.
Horrible,
Right,
but
yeah,
true.
yeah.
Sulfur works. Sulfur works. It was used in ancient times,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
absolutely,
I wonder why.
it
What
kills
does it
everything.
do?
It'll kill insects if they get close enough. It kills bacteria. It kills virus. It kills absolutely everything. It stinks, and you have to drop like a block of sulfur into a alcohol bath, which is like what he did, and the thing comes up, and it will work. And they used it in something.
Who
DC.
discovered that?
Ancient.
Oh, yes. Who discovered? Yes,
who discovered
doctor.
that?
Someone
Wait,
in BC
discovered that.
discovered
Who
it.
discovered? Because it does. It goes. Oh, it kills bacteria, fungus. It kills fungus.
Like how?
It
How would
goes. No, they
would they have
knew it
discovered
because
that?
when we say how many billions of years ago did they do the sulfur thing? It was used absolutely in ancient times, like ancient Greeks and Romans used it, and they to this day.
I just want to know the ancient Greek
So who
person
figured? Yeah, who
was
did it
like,
first? Went, ew, this smells bad. Let's try it.
Yeah, right.
It's still, and they still use
Exactly.
it sometimes. It absolutely sulfur will kill anything, and you can disinfect a place with sulfur.
And sulfur
You
is
can.
still used for stink
Wow.
bombs and all that stuff. I mean, it's like sulfur's a big deal.
I will say, even though the episode wraps up on a semi-happy
We never deal
note,
with
right?
everyone
like the
who
family
died.
is
I mean,
really
it's like
sweet.
all
That's-
the well,
Right,
Doc-
but there-
Reverend Alden says.
Yes.
Yeah, a lot of people have died.
Right.
A lot of, and we've seen
Yes.
them die in the course of this episode.
made us
So here's
stronger.
here's
It made
my
us stronger.
beef. Here's my beef with Little House on the Prairie as a whole. We have these very dramatic, very upsetting episodes. Very sad. And even though it's ended on a positive note, we are still carrying
Yeah,
sadness
into next week.
with us. Like we're not over it yet. And then what happens? Those ending credits. Do 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 do. Yeah, yeah. Do do do. We're happy now. Do 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 do. And it is a buzz kill of epic proportions. I don't know why Michael Landon didn't
Two
have
different
an
alternate theme.
alternate, two different credits, because I'm telling you that happy credit at the end ruins emotional experiences when it comes in on a highly dramatic episode, because you are not okay yet. And then there's Laura doing airplane arms in the Daisy
I think
Hill.
this is Michael's way of, this is the anthology nature of what the series is. Everything starts off clean. You have this moment. This is people's beef with traditional episodic television, is that the stakes are wiped away immediately and everything is normal again the next week. That's the nature
We
of
have
episodic
not
television.
recovered
In the
yet.
episode, we're getting.
have not
I mean, they could have
recovered
done
yet.
the alternate ending for like Sylvia and scary episodes. They could have had it like silence,
Yes!
like a crawl, just the crawl of names,
Please!
silent or quiet music. But then no, we had
Please. They have sweeping, beautiful music
where
that they could
everyone
use. I know.
dies. The Sylvia one, the
Mary
baby
blind,
dies.
cloud rape. I know.
I hadn't thought about that. That's sort of, yeah.
As a kid.
Yeah.
It's awful going through those ending credits after a series. I mean, it's really awful. It's awful. The fans, back me up here. It is
well,
awful.
let's let our listeners can comment on that. That's a very interesting point. I hadn't really thought about.
It's weird.
Yeah.
Why didn't he have an alternate ending credit for the really horrible episodes? Anyway,
Okay,
that's my beef.
job.
Yes, listeners, people, if you also feel that way about the ending credits, please chime in. Let me know. Let us know. That's funny. You've never thought of that before. Even your episodes when you're like, paralyzed and the house is do.
Right.
Woo,
Oh, exactly.
do. He's fine now. Yeah, it's a buzzkill. Anyway, that's how I'm wrapping this episode up.
Yes,
Thank you guys.
really
this is
fun.
another fun recap.
I think great episode. A great episode. For
Great,
all its
episode.
medical inconsistencies and incorrect, a great episode. A great hour.
The sulfur's
of
real.
television.
The sulfur's
I wouldn't
correct.
have known. And typhus is
Yeah,
correct. It's just the intricacies.
It is
of
insanely
how it
dangerous,
all
and that's
worked
why
in
you
this
must keep your flour and your grains safe from rats and other things because you can die.
Yeah.
Ooh,
Very good. All right.
gross. Okay. Let's
Let's
thank
run
God
for the
we're
exit.
not in the 1800s anymore.
And then after a terrifying episode, what are we going to do?
We're going to fly.
We're gonna fly. Everyone, thank you for joining us. Join us on our socials, Little House 50 Podcast, on our website, littlehouse50podcast.com. Like and subscribe. Share this to your friends. And we will see you next time. Bob, let's go get the wig. And fly. We're doing the credits. Damn it. We should have an alternative.
No.
I'm so happy I don't have typhus and I don't live in the 1800s and there's antibiotics. Yay! Antibiotics! Yay!